everyone.
We are the Group 4.
We discussed to all of you the strategic thinking, which is one of the cognitive and metacognitive factors of learning.
But before that, it is important for us to know what is cognitive and metacognitive is.
Cognitive refers to multiple mental abilities, including learning, thinking, reasoning, remembering, problem-solving, decision-making, and attention. It is in essence the ability to perceive and react, process and understand, store and retrieve information, make decisions, and produce appropriate responses.
However, metacognitive is a conscious awareness of one's thoughts, thinking about thinking. Metacognitive refers to methods used to help students understand the way they learn. In other words, it means processes designed for students to think about their thinking.
Teachers who use metacognitive strategies can positively impact students who have learning disabilities by helping them to develop an appropriate plan for learning information, which can be memorized and eventually routine.
As students become aware of how they will learn, they will use the processes to efficiently acquire new information and consequently become more independent thinkers.
So now, we will start sharing to you one of the cognitive and metacognitive factors of learning, which is strategic thinking. Good day everyone, I am Erica Rose C. Iglesia. So first, we need to know what is strategic thinking. Strategic thinking defined as a mental or thinking process applied by an individual in the context of achieving goals or a set of goals in a game and other endeavors. As a cognitive activity, it produces thought. As successful learners can create and use repertoire of thinking and reasoning strategies to achieve complex learning goals. Successful learners use strategic thinking in their approach to learning, reasoning, problem solving, and concept learning. They understand and can use variety of strategies to help them achieve learning, performance goals, and to apply their knowledge to novel situations. They also expand their repertoire of strategies by reflecting on methods to see which work well for them, by receiving guided instruction and feedback, and by observing or interacting with appropriate models. Learning outcomes can be enhanced if the educators assist learners in developing, applying, and assessing strategic learning skills.
The fact that performance in our task was inversely related to difficulty suggests that learning to strategize is part of the overall development of executive functions. This development is gradual, allowing children to perform some simple aspects of ability to more complex situation. As we grow, we acquire more sophisticated logical thinking abilities, helping to solve more sophisticated problems of strategic thinking.
The present study examined the learning strategies of students and the differences in their use as a function of their performance on a fluid intelligence test, a scientific reasoning task, and a divergent thinking of creativity task, all of which are key skills involved in knowledge generation. Those students with higher fluid and scientific reasoning skills reported a greater use of strategies aimed at context control, including social interaction and resource management, whereas participants with higher scores on the creativity task reported a significantly greater use of metacognitive, motivational, and purely cognitive strategies, which is information searching and processing. Overall, this indicates that the use of learning strategies aim at supporting and controlling information processing contribute to different reasoning skills and suggest that the encouragement of social interaction and cooperation among students would promote the development of basic cognitive skills such as creative thinking and problem-solving abilities.
We, as a teachers, can help our learners to construct knowledge and enhance their skills through instructional scaffolding. Again, good morning, beautiful people. I'm Patrick R. Feliciano, and now I will discuss to you the instructional scaffolding. But before that, let's watch this.
Hello and welcome to Teachings in Education, Instructional Scaffolding. I am your narrator, Frank Avella. Here we will cover several different topics related to scaffolding, and we'll begin with the question of why should educators use scaffolding in the first place? Scaffolding is used to help students meet their learning objectives. Scaffolding allows the teacher to take on the role as a facilitator, and it allows the student to do the work themselves in a student-centered manner. Instructional scaffolding is an excellent type of intervention for struggling students. It can be individualized for specific students and various types of activities. Another benefit is that it often opens up a dialogue between teachers and students that will help build a rapport, something I'll talk about a little later. Next, we'll briefly look at some different types of scaffolding. Instructional scaffolding can be broken down into two different types. The first type is called soft scaffolding, and the second type, you guessed it, is hard scaffolding. So soft scaffolding can be something as simple as a teacher roaming the room and giving hints and prompts to students in need of help. Hard scaffolding, on the other hand, such as making additions to worksheet, providing visuals, creating cue cards, and much more. Continuing, we'll take a look at how teachers can actually scaffold in the classroom. It's best first to develop a rapport with the students. The rapport will only deepen as the teacher provides prompts and explanations for the students. Next, teachers should assess students for their knowledge level of topic of study. Formative assessments are great for this. Then, select a task for the student that aligns with curriculum standards and the teacher's lesson planning objectives. This can be a whole class or individual for the student. Because the teacher has assessed the student's knowledge, that teacher should be able to anticipate upcoming errors on behalf of the student. Next, we must apply the scaffold to the task. So if the task is a compare and contrast essay, maybe provide a partially filled Venn diagram on the subject. And as students improve, teachers should begin to remove the scaffold. Perhaps graphic organizers aren't warranted anymore. You don't want the students to become reliant on the scaffold. So right now I'm going to take a short break and ask you to like and subscribe to this channel. Don't forget to share this video. Check the description and check links for resources to a PowerPoint presentation and some scaffolding activities as well. Up next is the topic of classroom scaffolding. Here are just a few types of instructional scaffolds. First, a teacher can provide cue cards to the students. These cards can have visual representations, mnemonics, and other sorts of information for solving problems. Another type of instructional scaffold is to give students examples of problems. Examples can help students get over the hill when they're stuck on what to do next. Vocabulary books work very well. This will help a student understand the meaning of words in different contexts. Teachers can easily prompt a student to stimulate their achievement. There are verbal prompts and physical prompts, such as point to what to do next. Low-functioning special needs students may need little hints from time to time. Give them a hint that may spark their thinking. Graphic organizers are exceptional scaffolding tools. With graphic organizers, students are able to bridge the gap between connecting concepts and ideas. Continuing, we'll take a look at some scaffolding guidelines for educators to follow. It's important for educators to give praise and encouragement. Just because a teacher gives a scaffold doesn't mean that the student will take it. Praise helps. Teachers must assign appropriate tasks for the student. Some tasks may be well beyond a student's ability. In that case, scaffolding won't be enough. Scaffolding should include various types of supports, and by that I mean not just academic, but social and emotional support. Students should be afforded second chances. If a student makes a mistake, even with the supports and scaffolds, they should continue to try and try again. And lastly, teachers must frequently check for understanding. which they can easily do through formative assessments. Helps educators identify where and when to scaffold. The next topic is whole classroom scaffolding. Although we always think of instructional scaffolding on the individual level, teachers can scaffold for an entire class using the method of I do, we do, you teach. It begins with the teacher modeling a task, process, or solution for the entire classroom. That class should watch closely as the instructor teaches the lesson. Next, the teacher and the student work together as a team. The teacher is there to help every step of the way. The next level involves the student working by themselves. Here they can demonstrate mastery of the topic. And lastly, the student becomes the teacher. This is the highest level, where they can now help their friends and peers learn. Now, before we finish this presentation, we're going to explore some challenges and criticisms of instructional scaffolding. Creating, securing resources, and implementation can be a time-consuming process. Different students in the same classroom may need different types of scaffolds. If teachers are committed to scaffolding, they must take the time and really get to know the student. There is no other way to do it. Also, critics believe that scaffolding can lead to students becoming too dependent on the scaffolds. Students often feel insecure when scaffolds are removed. So that wraps up this presentation. Don't forget to check the description, check the information links to pages for corresponding PowerPoints. Like, share, subscribe to this video. Check out the Teespring store as well. A lot of cool stuff there. Thank you for the view.
What is instructional scaffolding? Instructional scaffolding is a process through which a teacher adds support for students in order to enhance learning and aid in the mastery of tasks. The teachers does this by systematically building on students' experiences and knowledge as they are learning new skills. Instructional scaffolding, also known as Vygotsky scaffolding or just scaffolding, is a teacher's method that helps students learn more by working with the teachers or a more advanced students to achieve their learning goals. Instructional scaffolding improve learning. Similar to the scaffolding used in construction to support workers as they work on a specific task. Instructional scaffolds are temporary support structure faculty put in place to assist students in accomplishing new tasks and concepts they could not typically achieve on their own. Once students are able to complete or master the task, the scaffolding is gradually removed or fades away. The responsibility of learning shifts from the instructor to the students. Why use instructional scaffolding? One of the main benefits of scaffolded instruction is that it provides for a supportive learning environment. In a scaffolded learning environment, students are free to ask questions, provide feedback, and support their peers in learning new material. When you incorporate scaffolding in the classroom, you become more of a mentor and facilitator of knowledge rather than the dominant content expert. This teaching style provides the incentive for students to take a more active role in their own learning. Students share the responsibility of teaching and learning through scaffolds that requires them to move beyond their current skill and knowledge level. Through this interaction, students are able to take ownership of the learning event. The need to implement a scaffold will occur when you realize a student is not progressing on some aspect of a task or unable to understand a particular concept. Although scaffolding is often carried out between the instructor and one student, scaffolds can successfully be used for an entire class.
Although scaffolding is often carried out between instructor and one student, scaffold can successfully be used for an entire class. First, the instructor does it. In other words, the instructor models how to perform a new or different task, such as how to use a graphic organizer. For example, an instructor may project or hand out a partially completed graphic organizer, then ask student to think aloud as he or she describe how the graphic organizer illustrates the relationship among the information contained on it. Second, the class does it. The students and instructor work together to perform the task. Like for example, the students may suggest informations to be added on the graphic organizer. As the teacher write the suggestion on the whiteboard, the student fill their own copy of graphic organizer. Third, the group does it. A student work with partner or with a small cooperative group to complete the graphic organizer. More complex the content might require is a number scaffolds given at different times to help students master the content. Fourth, the individual does it. This is the independent practice stage where the student can demonstrate their task mastery and receive necessary practice to improve or to help them perform their task automatically and quickly.
Types of scaffolding. Alibali 2006 suggests that as students progress through a task, faculty can use a variety of scaffolds to accommodate students' different levels of knowledge. More complex content might require a number of scaffolds given at different times to help students master the content. Here are some common scaffolds and ways they could be used in an instructional setting. Advanced organizers. Tools used to introduce new content and tasks to help students learn about the topic. Venn diagrams to compare and contrast information. Flowcharts to illustrate processes. Organizational charts to illustrate hierarchies. Outlines that represent content. Mnemonics to assist recall. Statement to situate the task or content. Rubrics that provide task expectation. Cue cards. Prepared cards given to individual or group of students to assist in their discussion about a particular topic or content area. Vocabulary words to prepare for exam. Content-specific STEM sentences to complete. Formulate to associate with a problem, concept to define. Concept and mind maps. Maps that show relationships. Partially or completed maps for students to complete. Students create their own maps based on their current knowledge of the task or concept. Examples, samples, specimens, illustration, problems, real objects, illustrative problems used to represent something. Explanations. More detailed information to move students along on a task or in their thinking of a concept. Written instruction for a task. Verbal explanation of how a process works. Handouts. Prepare handouts that contain task and content-related information, but with less detail and room for student note-taking. Prompts. A physical or verbal cue to remind to aid in recall of prior or assumed knowledge. Physical. Body movements such as pointing, nodding the head, eye blinking, foot tapping. Verbal. Words, statements, and questions such as go, stop, it's right there, tell me now. What toolbar menu item would you press to insert an image? Tell me why the character acted that way. Question cards. Prepared cards with content and task-specific questions given to individual or group of students to ask each other pertinent questions about a particular topic or content area. Question steps. Incomplete sentences which students complete encourages deep thinking by using higher order what-if questions. Stories. Stories relate complex and abstract material to situations more familiar with students. Recite stories to inspire and motivate learners. Visual scaffolds. Pointing when call attention to an object. Representational gesture. Holding curved hands apart to illustrate roundness. Moving rigid hands diagonally upward to illustrate step or processes. Diagrams such as cards and graphs, methods of highlighting visual information. Preparing to use scaffolding. As with any teaching technique, scaffolds should complement instructional objectives. While we expect all of our students to grasp course content, each of them will not have the necessary knowledge or capability to initially perform as we have intended. Scaffolds can be used to support students when they begin to work on objectives that are more complex or difficult to complete. For example, the instructional objective may be for students to complete a major paper. Instead of assuming all students know how to begin the process, break the task into smaller, more manageable parts. First, the instructor provides an outline of the components of the paper. Then students will prepare their outline. The instructor then provides a rubric of how each paper criteria will be assessed. Students will then work on those criteria and at the same time and self-evaluate their progress. The pattern will continue until the task is completed, although scaffolds may not be necessary in all parts of the task. Knowing your subject well will also help you identify the need for scaffolding. Plan to use scaffolds on topics that former students had difficulty with or with material that is especially difficult or abstract. Hogan suggests that you practice scaffold topics and strategies they know well. In other words, begin by providing scaffolded instruction in small steps with content you are most comfortable teaching. Guidelines for implementing scaffolding. The following points can be used as guidelines when implementing instructional scaffolding. First, allow students to help create instructional goals. This can increase students' motivation and their commitment to learning. Second, consider students' background and prior knowledge to assess their progress. Material that is too easy will quickly bore students and reduce motivation. On the other hand, material that is too difficult can turn off students' interest levels. Third, use a variety of supports as students progress through a task. Example, prompts, questions, hints, stories, models, visual scaffolding including pointing, representational gestures, diagrams, and other methods of highlighting visual information. Fourth, provide encouragement and praise as well as ask questions and have students explain their progress to help them stay focused on the goal. Fifth, monitor students' progress through feedback. In addition to instructors' feedback, have students summarize what they have accomplished so they are aware of their progress and what they have yet to complete. Select suitable tasks that match curriculum goals, course learning objectives, and students' need. 7. Provide encouragement and praise as well as ask questions. 8. Create a welcoming, safe, and supportive learning environment that encourages students to take risks and try alternatives. Everyone should feel comfortable expressing their thoughts without fear and negative responses. 9. Help students become less dependent on instructional support as they work on tasks and encouragement them to practice the task in different contexts. 10. Help students become less dependent on instructional support as they work on tasks. Benefits of instructional scaffolding. Challenges students through deep learning and discovery. Engage students in meaningful and dynamic discussion in small and large classes. Motivates learners to become better students, learning how to learn. Increases the likelihood for students to meet instructional objectives. Provides individualized instruction, especially in smaller classrooms. Affords the opportunity for peer teaching and learning. Scaffolds can be recycled for other learning situations. Provides a welcoming and caring learning environment. Challenges of instructional scaffolding. Planning for and implementing scaffold is time-consuming and demanding. Selecting appropriate scaffolds that match the diverse learning and communication styles of students. Knowing when to remove the scaffold so the students does not rely on the support. Not knowing the students well enough. Their cognitive and affective abilities to provide appropriate scaffolds. All in all, instructional scaffolds promotes learning through dialogue, feedback, and shared responsibility. Through the supportive and challenging learning experiences gained from carefully planned scaffolded learning, instructors can help students become lifelong independent learners.
Again, strategic thinking is one of the factors of cognitive and metacognitive, which tells that
successful learners use strategic thinking in their approach to learning, reasoning, problem solving, and concept learning.
We hope you learned something from that. So if there is, just leave, share love, joy, and knowledge to everyone.
Thank you for listening. Have a blessed day.